Happy Monday, everybody. So this lesson today is called Solving Quadratic Equations Part 2.b because it's very much just combining and doing some things that we did last week that are the same here, okay? So, Solving Equations, Day 2.b. Remember, pause and play as you need to. If you have questions as you're going, we will have live session coming up here, so tomorrow. And then if you need some assistance, you can sign up for tutoring as well, okay? Click on the link and sign up for the day. So it starts here, it says, what would you do? And it has this, 3x minus 7 times x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, well, hey, it's been factored. Somebody did all that work for us. What do you do when you have two factors equal to 0? Well, we can 3x minus 7 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. Okay? So, x equals negative 4 for one of them. The other one here, I have 3x equals 7. 7 is definitely not divisible by 3. So, I'm going to leave it as 7 over 3. Okay? You cannot write it as 2.6666. I will not accept that. Okay? Leaving it as 7 over 3. So now that I've given you that, is this the same thing? I have x times 2x minus 1 equals 45. So is this the same as over here where it was equal to 0? Or is it different? The answer to this right here is it's different. Okay, what makes it different? It's not equal to 0, it's equal to 45. Okay, so here's how we go about this question. I want to first distribute so that we have this, 2x squared minus x equals 45. Now we talked a little bit, and I'll talk more here later, but if I have an x squared in the problem and an x in the problem, probably means I need to factor. So, subtract the 45, 2x squared minus x minus 45 equals 0. Hey, what I want you to do, because I think you can do this, I want you to find, hey, what are we going to multiply to? What are we going to add to? Okay. In my brain, as I was asking you to do that, I've looked, is there a greatest common factor? Nope. There are 3 terms, which is why I know that I need to do my multiply and add chart. Okay. Remember, I'm doing 2 times negative 45. And adding to this negative x, which is actually a negative 1. Okay, so I want you to find your factors, and I want you to factor this and solve it all the way to the end. Alright, there is what you should have, okay, when you get your x equals. So I have an x equals 5 down here, and then I also have x equals negative 9 over 2, okay. So here is another example, okay. If I have w times w plus 3 equals 40, very similar to that last one. I want you to pause and distribute it and see what you get. So right here we have this w squared plus 3w equals 40. Again, a giveaway, I have a w squared and I have a w. Okay, so that tells me I probably want to get it equal to 0. Okay, w squared plus 3w minus 40 equals 0. I want you to stop and I want you to solve that one by factoring. Don't forget, check for GCF. Am I solving by trinomial, difference of squares? Solve for W. Alright, there it is. That is what you should have when you solve by factoring. I think I have one more. Let me double check and make sure. Yep. So I'm actually going to pause, and I want you to do the entire question here on your own. Got you. You've already done this question. This was the first question we did together, so you know what? We're just not going to do it. So, here we go. I think I meant to go back and change that. Never did. That's okay. We've done a few examples. I think you've got the gist of what I mean when I do those questions. Now, what I want to do a quick talk about, we talked about a little bit in our live session on Friday, okay, but I want you to get a little bit more here. How would you solve? Meaning, when and what do you know when to solve by square roots versus solving by factoring? Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. You're going to know that if it's a solve by square roots question, if it's something like 2x squared plus 7 equals 15. Okay, how do I know this is a solve by square roots question? It has just an x squared, nothing else. You may also see it look like this, negative 3 times x plus 4 squared minus 6 equals, make it equal to 0 for fun. Okay, again, I know that this is a solve by square roots question because it has a squared term only. Okay, how do I know that it might be a good contender for solving by factoring? You might have a question that's something like x squared plus 4x minus 7 equals 13. Okay, if I look here at this question, I have both a x that is squared and both an x that is not squared. That lets me know that, hey, it might be a factoring question. You might have something like 2x squared plus 7x equals 0. Okay, again, this lets me know that it's factoring because I have an x squared and I have just an x. Okay, what I'm going to do on this next page here, I'm going to show you some examples. I want you to look at them and pause, and I want you to decide whether you would solve them by factoring or by the square root method just by looking at them. Okay, so looking at them, factoring or the square root method. Alright, I covered them up for a reason here. So let's look at them. That first question, how would you solve it? Well, this is a good contender for the square root because all I have is this y squared. Well, can I get that y squared alone? Yep. I can add the 18. Okay, so if you haven't solved, go ahead and solve it. Then check your answer as you go here, so you can pause and play. So now I have 4y squared equals 80. Remember to get rid of the squared. We're going to square root both sides. And now I have y squared equals, well, not y squared, lied there. I have y equals plus or minus, because that's how I'm going to get two answers, square root of 20. Now remember, I'm not going to leave it as square root of 20. I'm actually going to simplify that. Broke it down. Hey, look here. I have a pair of 2's. So my final answer, that 2 is on the outside with a 5 on the inside. Okay, so that first question was a square root question. The second question, factoring. Okay, what kind of gives it away? Well, I have this m squared, and I have an m term, even though I have them on both sides. Okay, when I end up with something like this, where I have those terms on both sides like that, well, what is something that I can do? Well, I can get them so that they're all together. So what do I mean by that? We can subtract the 3m, and then at the same time, I'm actually going to add 7. Alright, so that now I have this, 3m squared plus 7m plus 4 now equals 0. Okay, remember this right here, when I'm making one of these, what are we multiplying and adding to? 3 times 4 is 12. We're adding to 7. I want you to pause and I want you to factor that. Alright, there is what you should get when you solve that one by factoring. Now, this last question is actually can be solved using either method. So let's talk about real quick why it can be solved using either method. Okay, first off, you may have noticed right here, hey, c squared only. So yeah, you can isolate that c squared. Okay, some of you may have noticed or remembered that, hey, I've got a perfect square, and a difference. Okay, so when you solve this equation, no matter what method you want to use, and I'm going to show you how you can use both, okay, another one over there so I can solve it here in a minute. If I'm solving using factoring, okay? When I have a perfect square and a perfect square with a difference, remember, I can square root both terms, add a plus, and add a minus. Okay? Now, I would set each equal to 0. 2c minus 10 equals 0. 2c plus 10 equals 0. And I would solve. Okay? If you solve using the square root method, okay, I have a c squared here. Well, I can add 100 to the other side. So 4c squared equals 100. I can divide by 4. Now, to get rid of a square symbol, we know we need to square root. Well, what's going to happen when I square root 25? Well, the square root of 25 is 5, and when I add a square root, I have to put a plus or minus. This right here is the same thing as those right there. Hey, that's all I have for you. I will see you in the live session tomorrow.